This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a very cold andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Jared, and we've got Marcel behind the camera. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our regular viewers, but an extra warm welcome to all our 10-cent video viewers. Welcome for the first time. I trust that you enjoy the ride with us. If you do have any questions or comments, please do leave them in the comments section below. All right, so we started off nice and early today, and we came out into the open areas in the search of lions and cheetah, and we were lucky enough to come across two pretty big white rhino. I think at the moment you could probably see one, but there is two there. The one is right behind the other. And one of the first things you'll notice is that they're busy eating grass. Now, that is generally the easiest indication to whether these are black or white rhino. And they would have just woken up. White rhinos are diurnal animals, so they're only really active in the daytime. They do move around a little at night to have a drink. There isn't a waterhole too far away. But they would have come to this raised area where we are now to get the last bit of warmth from last night, and probably only woke up about half an hour or so. And the first thing they do, wake up and start to eat. So way 10, one of the ways that we know how to find each and every animal is habitat specific. So animals like these rhinos that we're busy viewing at the moment, they like to eat grass. And because they're grass eaters, we generally come into area where there's quite a lot of grass, and particularly grass that is very nutritious. The other type of rhino that we get here, known as the black rhino, they like habitats that are very dense and thick because they're browsers, they eat leaves. And then certain animals are diurnal and nocturnal, so lions and leopards, honey badgers, aardvark, pangolin. These are all animals that you often see moving around at nighttime, and so that's often some of the best times to find those. And then another good place to look is around water. Almost all these animals have to drink water pretty regularly, some daily, some every 2 or 3 days. So we often will head towards waterholes, see what we can find around there. If we can't find them at the waterhole, we'll often find the tracks, so the paw marks that are left on the ground, and then we're able to track them down. And so that is actually why we've come into this particular area. It is a very open area, which is spectacular for finding cheetah. There were some lions seen here recently, and I know that an open area like this full of grass attracts lots of grazers. So we expect to see wildebeest, zebra, warthogs, buffalo, and white rhino in this area as well. All right, so while we continue on to watch these two rhinos busy grazing away, let's head over to Taylor to see what grazers she has.
Good morning from Pridelands. We are part of the Greater Kruger National Park, which I'm sure most of you have heard of, and we are sitting with one of the most iconic animals in Africa, and more than one of them, quite a few actually, a rather large herd of African buffalo. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Gert, and we are so excited to have you all here. So please remember to send all your questions through, and I look forward to getting to know some of you a little bit better. But as you've been sitting here this morning, we've been listening very carefully too, because we've seen lots of track and sign, lots of footprints of lions in the area. And lions like to hunt African buffalo, especially big prides or big male lions. So you never know what could pop out in the long grass. And you'll see they've just woken up. The buffalo is sleeping out here on Pridelands, resting for most of the night. But they've just started to wake up and are now going to start grazing, or they'll maybe even head to a watering hole and have a drink a little bit later this morning. But they're a little bit hesitant, a little bit wary of us. You can see that they're just watching us now. One cow just keeping an eye out on us. Just looking back every now and then. Seaching, now we're super lucky to be interacting with these wild animals, and I think it's great that you've asked how we are able to do this and be safe at the same time. So all of us that you'll meet today on the Sunrise Safari have got many, many years as safari guides. So we are basically trained in animal behavior, and typically wild animal behavior. So because we've been following animals for years and years in vehicles, we can tell when an animal is upset with us. But these animals have also seen lots of vehicles. So like I said, this ecosystem that we are in here in South Africa, we're sort of in the northern parts of South Africa, is open to the largest wilderness ecosystem called the Greater Kruger National Park. So they see lots of cars on a regular basis. So they are accustomed to us too. But if a buffalo were to lift its head up and maybe make some grunting sounds or stare at us, we know that it's maybe slightly agitated, but buffalo are nervous creatures as is. So whenever an animal tells us that they're unhappy with us, we make sure that we listen to them. So this is just one of the many things that you can learn as a safari guide. And of course, we do this when we train our students here with eco training. We teach them these things. So it's very important to sit with the animals and spend time. So now you can see they've got their heads down and they're eating. If you think about it, if you were frightened or nervous, you probably wouldn't be eating your dinner or your breakfast or your lunch. You'd be very focused on what you may perceive as a threat. But they are completely relaxed with us now. Minying, so when you are filming on safari, you know what you actually have to remember is you mustn't always just focus on your subject. So for example, we're going to have a nice look at this big buffalo bull that was just staring at us behind the tree. So you must remember that there are also other animals around you. So you're very, very lucky, of course, sitting at home watching this amazing safari. And you will just see that. But while I'm looking around, I'm making sure that there are no other animals that are upset with me, and also looking out for exciting things, like maybe there is a pride lion stalking up to this herd of buffalo. But something that you'll be able to see that most people aren't able to see on safari is the attention to detail. With these incredible cameras on the cars, we can zoom right on up close to a buffalo's face. And hopefully I'll show you a nice example where we can show you these small birds that are actually sitting on the buffalo. Every now and then you might even hear their little chirps, and you can see them sort of digging into the nostrils. And you wouldn't normally be able to have such a great up close and personal encounter if you were in this car. So it's really amazing to have these cameras. Sure. Yangqing, you know what, we're so lucky with the way that technology is progressing at the moment. We are finding out new information about all the animals, not just the most iconic ones. They're still discovering new species of insects and amphibians, so frogs and toads and those types of things, which is truly incredible, especially, you'd think that we would know about almost everything. So I think that there's still going to be a lot to discover. So books about animal behavior have been written about animal behavior and animals years and years ago. And what we are finding is that with the new technology, we're actually disproving a lot of those theories. For example, it was always assumed that hyenas, for example, which is a predator out here, were always scavengers and that they didn't do any hunting. But this is completely, of course, wrong. And in East Africa, we can see hyenas hunting buffalo, which is truly spectacular. So we're finding out all this amazing information on a daily basis. But we're going to follow the buffalo and see if they head down towards a dam. The sun is just peering over the tops of the trees. Let's go take a look at Ngala.
Good morning, everybody, and a very chilly welcome, actually, to andBeyond Ngala. We have come towards this beautiful little ridgeline where the sun is just rising above the crest, and we thought it was too good of a sunrise not to show everyone. So my name is Eric, and behind camera is Owen. There's his thumb. And we decided to come here because there's a water hole, and I just wanted to show you quickly a little bit what Ngala looks like. So this is us, and we are all the way down over here. This is where we're watching the sunrise. And one of the reasons why we decided to come down into this area is there was a nice big herd of buffaloes around this area last night. And hopefully there might be a pride of lions that might be following these buffaloes to try and hunt them. And so we decided to come down towards a waterhole. There's lots of tracks of them around. You can see the water there. It's such a beautiful morning scene. Iron Man, you asking which animals are the most rare in this reserve? And within this whole ecosystem around us, I would probably have to say an animal called a pangolin. But one of the most unique things that andBeyond Ngala has to offer us is a very special pride of lions who have got two very unique members. And the members are a slightly different color to what normal lions look like. They are completely white in color, which is very abnormal. They're exactly like normal lions, it's just a funny different color. And in the wild, there's only 3 that are born within the Kruger National Park. And within this pride that hopefully we're going to try and find for you this morning, there's 2 of them. So within the whole of the Kruger, which is 2.2 million hectares, we've got 2 of 3 individual white lions. So that probably is one of the most rare animals that we have on offer in this reserve. There's pangolins we sometimes see every now and again. Sometimes we find aardvark, which is a nocturnal animal that you find pretty much all throughout the country. But yeah, white lions for me would probably be some of the rarest ones that we might get the chance to see. And hopefully we get the chance to show you this morning. And so we're pretty much going to be backtracking these buffaloes to figure out if the lions have picked up the scent of these buffaloes. Because these lions, especially at this time of year, they'll spend a lot of time following a herd of buffaloes. And the reason being is that they're looking for an opportunity to hunt them. So they're looking for weakened individuals in the drying conditions, or maybe 1 or 2 young ones that will be an easy target for them. And these lions will take advantage of these big buffaloes. It's one of those high risk, high reward things. There's lots of potential this morning, and that's one of the really nice things about coming out here in the early morning is putting all of these puzzle pieces together and trying to figure out what the lions have been doing and what the buffalo might have been doing and if there have been any interactions. And so whilst we keep on driving for a little bit, looking for any further signs and tracks of anything, we'll send you across to Djuma, where Steve is waiting to say good morning.
Good morning and welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. We found some elephants, although you wouldn't really notice because they've gone in the bush. Hello, my name is Steve and I'm joined by David on camera. Very excited to have all of you new viewers with us today. Welcome to the show. Please put your questions and comments below. Welcome to all the regular viewers as well as to all of our new viewers from Tencent Video. We are very excited to have you today. And well, I've got a herd of elephants that have just disappeared behind the bush here. Actually hear them feeding on the vegetation. We are in the savannah, which means there's lots of trees. Wow. There's a very unhappy elephant around the corner. I don't know if you could hear that, a very loud it's like I'm going to go check that out. That sounds like the elephants are fighting with the buffalo. Elephants are very grumpy sometimes. They are the biggest animal around, you see. And when they get angry, they chase everybody around. And sometimes they get angry because they've got babies. Normally is the case. And if there's a lion around or a leopard, they quite often get very angry with those animals and chase them around. So let's go have a look. There was a herd of buffalo just down here before, but we thought we would show you elephants because they're very special. Gentle giants of the African wilderness. Just give me a moment to find them. Lots of elephants and lots of buffalo around at the moment as we are now in winter. It is a very, very cold morning here. Wearing all of the layers. See if we can find them. It sounded like it was a few hundred meters away. As you were being told before, you never know what you will find on safari. Absolutely anything. Hello, little. You want to know what animals are in this reserve? Well, there's definitely elephants, buffaloes, lions, leopards, giraffe, zebra. We're pretty much similar to a number of the other locations you're going to see. Pridelands and andBeyond and Ngala are quite similar. We'll see if we can knock them up for you. So make sure you have a list, because every Saturday when you watch with us, you're going to get new and exciting animals. And you never know what you might find next. Here we go. Here's the buffalo. Oh, I can hear the elephants off to the right-hand side. Let's just find the buff and then establish what's going on with these ellies. There we go. The Cape buffalo. Hello, Tommy. I wonder if buffaloes can lose their horns. I've never seen them lose their horns. They can break off on the edges. That happens sometimes when they're older, or some females have also broken them. It is a sign of sort of weakness, I suppose, if the horn does break. But the male buffalo rub their heads and horns against branches a lot during their life. And as they get older, they wear down a bit, and the tips can break off. But they are formidable weapons, designed, the males, of course, for fighting against each other, and the females for defending their babies against lions. And hyena sometimes. There's a male. You see that big sort of bulbous top of the head is called the boss. And indeed, the big male buffaloes are the boss. And there behind, you can see that female at the back there. She's got the horns, but a bit more of a furry head. Doesn't have that sort of helmet-like shape on the top. Hello, Beach Bunny. You want to know if buffaloes have a dominant female? Well, they actually have a dominant group of females that lead them around. The ladies are in charge, and everybody follows where they go. The sort of dominant females lead the way. The older and weaker females follow at the back, and the bulls are interspersed in between and on the edges as sort of a protection. They're there to fight the predators and also to compete with each other. They've been sleeping for the night. Now they're up and feeding, and they're going to be slowly making their way to water. And hopefully they don't encounter any lions. But you are going to be encountering some lions very shortly, all the way over at andBeyond, Phinda.
Most certainly indeed, Steve. You're going to see lions shortly. And the lions, fortunately, the jaw buffaloes won't come across. But have a look, everyone. We've just found a pride of lions. And what I've been able to count so far is 2 adult females and 5 youngsters who are around 11 months old, all 5 of them being males. And I haven't been able to get too close, but I do see around the corner, it does look like one of the lioness is busy feeding on something. It would be quite interesting to go and see exactly what she's feeding on. But we've just got lions a bit surrounded by us, so we can't quite get there yet. And I'm not 100% sure why, but she was quite grumpy with the rest of the pride. Every time one of the youngsters stood up or one of the adults stood up, she would growl towards them. And so we just wanted to give her a little bit of space. I don't think she was upset with us at all. It was maybe just being a little bit protective over her kill. I can actually hear her busy chewing away. I'm going to just try to see if I can edge forward without disturbing the rest of the pride. Let's see if we can find a gap. Oh, it's a giraffe. Oh my word, there's cubs there. There's cubs. And this is the very first time any of us have ever seen these cubs. We knew one of the females was pregnant. One of the cubs just ran behind the giraffe. That's why she was agitated. These cubs, oh, there you can, I'm just going to keep quiet so you can listen. One of the cubs was just calling, meow, meow. These cubs are maybe only a month or 2 old. No one has seen them yet. We know that the female's been pregnant. We assume that she started to den. Alright, I do apologize that maybe you can't hear because there's some wind. I do apologize for that, but I think if we're just patient, we will hopefully see these cubs. And I think that's why the female was grumpy when we arrived, because these cubs are so small. She doesn't want the rest of the pride near her cubs in case they accidentally injure them. I can see she's licking something at the moment. Oh, there's a cub right behind her. Oh my word, they're so tiny. Oh, I feel so lucky to be able to see this right now. Okay, so we could see 2 cubs at least. She was busy licking something. I'm not sure if she's licking one of her cubs or she's licking at some meat. Yeah, you can see that she had some hair on her tongue there. This is absolutely spectacular. You can see the cubs busy bouncing around in front of her. Maybe begging for her to sit down so they can suckle. Oh my word, they are so small. So I'm just trying to look at the color of their eyes. When cubs are born, they're born blind, and after a week or so they can open up their eyes, and their eyes are initially blue.
It's still that grey blue.
Marcel, who can zoom in a little bit better on his camera, says that they're a little bit grey blue. So I'd estimate them to maybe be about 2 months old. And this is probably the very first time she may have ever brought these cubs to a kill. At least I'm assuming there's a kill. I originally thought that fallen over branch was a giraffe, but I can smell that there is something dead around here. Nancy, I couldn't agree more. They are so teeny. I am grinning from ear to ear. We didn't even know that she's given birth yet. We knew she was pregnant. We thought maybe she had started to den in the hillside near to where we are now. And we are the very, very first people to ever see these cubs. So she's down again. I think she's feeding again. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what she's feeding on, but because her cubs are quite small, and this is the first time that we've come across these cubs, and in fact this is the very first time this particular female's ever had cubs, she might be a little bit protective, so we're just giving her some space. And so we'll have to see. She's just moved off. I think the cubs have wandered off, and maybe she's gone to go fetch them to bring them back. Now we must keep a good lookout, because maybe she'll pick one of them up and carry them back here. Oh, she's just glanced over this way, and it's because the 5 youngsters, or the 3 of the 5 youngsters, are starting to walk in the direction where she was lying. So I think that there is a kill. Alright, so please do send through all your questions, particularly those who are viewing this for the first time. In the comment section below, please write your comments or your questions. You can also just hashtag WildEarth, and we'll try to get back to all your questions as much as possible. Oh, I can hear some growling. So I know that it's windy and you cannot hear it, but that female that walked off is busy growling at the moment. She's not happy that these youngsters have moved over to whatever they're feeding on. I wonder if this could get intense. She might come exploding out of the bush towards them to chase them off of that kill. With these cubs being around 2 months is around the time when they should be introduced to meat for the first time. So maybe she wants her cubs to get as much meat as they can. We did only see 2. Maybe there's a third one here to where these cubs are. Right, so while we try to figure out exactly how many cubs there are here and what these lions are busy feeding on, let's head over to Tswalu, who I believe has a hyena.
Isn't that just awesome? Just stunning to see lion cubs. Now here we have one of the animals that don't like to see lions, and that is a spotted hyena. It's very interested in something in the ground. Isn't that light just gorgeous on it? Thank goodness it's starting to warm up a little bit, because it has been freezing cold. And this hyena looks well fed. Isn't that stunning? Hi everyone, welcome aboard. My name is Trishana, and my cameraman this morning is BK, and we are very, very excited to have this hyena on screen. And that's because, apart from the fact that a hyena is an awesome animal, we also have a hyena den nearby. And just the fact that we get to see these hyenas after a while of not seeing them gives me hope that maybe that den is still active. Something is very, very interesting on the ground. Hyenas have a very strong sense of smell. That's how they sniff out their meals. And this one has its nose to the ground. So our clan here, we call a group of hyenas a clan. Our clan is the Djuma clan. And the females are very well known to us. This one is actually quite fluffy. Now when they're young, they're very, very fluffy. And this looks like one of the cubs from the previous litter. It looks a little like a Sutu, who is a cub from last year. Let's see if we can see him. Who is a cub from last year. Let's see if we can see him again. There we go. Just across there. Owlie, hi, how are you? You'd like to know if we have any robot animals here. No, we don't. Everything that we have is totally robots or anything like that. relevant question. We know that animals interact with each other. So, for example, if a hyena sees a lion, doesn't like that. In many places, or at least some places, sometimes put a cardboard cutout of certain animals and then try to figure out how these animals react. But to the robots and the cutouts, that doesn't happen as well. It does initially, but then they realize it's not real. Anyway, I'm going to send you over to Steve because he seems to be in the bush and exciting things might be happening.
Thanks, Trish. We're trying to find those elephants that are making lots of noise. And you'd be amazed at how difficult it is to find elephants sometimes. I think what happened is that because we found more and more buffalo coming out of that block. And I think what happened is the elephants came across the buff and said very nicely to the buffalo, go away. And then they moved off. But we haven't managed to find them. So we're going to slowly make our way back to the road. We've done a big loop, and then we go to a watering hole. Watering holes are always good places to find big animals. Let's just have a look how fresh is this little ball over here. Okay, well, before we take you over to Phinda, here is a pile of elephant poos. Not that fresh. It's a few days old, but this is what elephants leave behind, eating lots of vegetation and leaving lots of organic material on the floor. It's very, very exciting, but Phinda, andBeyond Phinda, has found what they're looking for.
So we managed to find a bit of a gap to be able to view what that female was feeding on earlier, and it seems that I was correct. They are feeding on a giraffe, a very young giraffe. I think maybe a newborn, may only be, judging by the size of the ribs, maybe only a couple of days old. So quite a young giraffe, which would have been quite easy for these two lionesses that are here at the moment to have been able to kill. And I assume what may have happened last night is that the two lionesses killed this giraffe. Then the one lioness went off, fetched her cubs from the den, brought them back, and let them feed for a bit. And she knows that the rest of the pride want to feed on this carcass, so they've fed. She's got a nice full belly, and she has moved off. I'm not sure exactly where she's gone. I've lost her in the long grass. She might be lying down, or maybe she's even decided that she's had enough. And let's get her two young cubs, or at least two young cubs, away from the area where these 5 young males are just dying to feed on what's left of this carcass. Child lion cubs can most certainly eat meat. So when they're born, they'll initially only suckle, and then anywhere between 2 to about 3 months, the mother will introduce them to meat for the first time, and they will have a bit of a mixed diet, both milk and meat. And then anything between 3 to 6 months depends on the mother. They'll generally be weaned at that stage, and meaning that they won't be drinking milk anymore, and that they'll have a completely meat diet. Have a look here at this female. So I just want to go off the lions that are busy feeding. She was just looking straight past us. I thought that maybe she spotted something. But how beautiful is that? So she is also very aware that those cubs are around, and so that's why I think that she hasn't flopped over to sleep. She knows that there's a couple of youngsters around, and it's important for her to even stay awake in case any other predators do come into this area. The main threat towards those cubs, and even the current cubs here at the moment, would be a big clan of hyena or a different pride of lions. Fortunately for them, this particular area where we are now isn't renowned for having a big clan of hyenas. There's only a couple of hyenas, and generally The pride of lions, that's territories north of here, don't come this far south. But that doesn't mean that they can't and won't. Oh, she's just heard something again. You can see how she's lifted her head. And probably nothing too serious. So we've got one of the other young males busy walking towards the carcass. Now you'll be able to see it's a young male. So they're just under a year old. He's got a bit of a mane growing down the top of his head down towards his shoulder. Tia, you're 100% correct. These are very, very lovely animals. And how lucky we are, Tia, to actually see them doing something. Often with lions, they're only active for about 4 hours of the day. So for about 20 hours, they're doing exactly what the one that we're busy filming at the moment is doing. But we've actually had them a bit active. We've got 4 of the young males busy feeding. We've got the one lioness with her head up. And earlier we had the other lioness with newborn cubs. And it is indeed very lovely, Thea. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear, the wind has died down a bit, but you might be able to hear these youngsters busy feeding. So I'm just going to keep quiet for a minute or so and let you listen to them cut and tear away at what is remaining on this giraffe. So at the moment it's very civil, and often when you see lions feeding, it isn't as civil as what we're seeing right now. There can often be quite a lot of fighting, and I'm surprised we haven't heard any growling yet, because generally towards the end of the carcass, when there's not a lot of meat, the individuals in the pride might fight over for what meat is left. And because there's 4 young males over there, and males generally do tend to be a little bit more selfish around the kills and not like to share, but it seems that today they are all playing game with each other. And it could be because a giraffe like this has quite a lot of meat on it, and they're probably nice and full as it is, and so that there's no need to fight over what little meat is left. All right. So while we keep watching them feeding and crossing our fingers that other female comes back with her 2 newborn cubs. When I say newborn, they're not newborn, they're 2 months. But for me, because it's the first time we've seen them, they're newborn. Let's head over to Tswalu.
Good morning from another beautiful day at Tswalu Kalahari Reserve. It's great having you all with us, all our regular viewers, and a big welcome to all our 10-cent viewers again. We're just going to be exploring this absolutely magical land with you. Please feel free to ask questions as we go. We'll be showing you a whole lot of interesting things. And you know, if you've got any comments, any questions, please send those through in the comment section. And you could use WildEarth as well. It's quite chilly out there this morning, but it is an absolutely magical morning. Just something out of interest, as I've been walking down here, I noticed these tracks all along the ground, and it's actually a brown hyena that's been walking all along here. So you can actually see he came in from that direction all along over here, and then if you're looking at tracks, I'll just move that. If you're looking at these kind of tracks, you can see very noticeably you've got a very large track and a very small track. And they actually also splayed out at a bit of an angle. They're not perfectly aligned. That's one reason that we know it's a hyena. They're quite small tracks, so it's not a spotted hyena. That's why we say it's a brown hyena. And in terms of looking at the line and the size of the tracks over here, with this very large track and the small track, so your front foot tends to be your larger foot in most animals, and your hind track is smaller. And there's a good reason for that. The majority of the weight on an animal, on an elephant, a buffalo, a hyena, is actually carried on the forequarters of the animal. So those tracks splay out a bit better. They've got broader feet on the front. I think the chance of seeing this animal, although it's still very, very early, it's still nice and cool, so it's not impossible that we can see it, but it's quite unlikely in daylight hours. I think we're going to just try to see if we can follow up here a little bit, and but in the meantime, head over to Steve and see what they've got on that side.
Thanks, Dylan. Welcome back to Djuma Private Game Reserve. And, well, we've managed to find those elephants. They weren't far away from where you last saw us. We found a very fresh pile of elephant dung, and then we heard them feeding. Excuse me. A little bit of dust in the air. She's also got a bit of dust in her nose. Did you hear that? And see how the elephant has got a super long trunk, which it uses for everything. There's the big female with no tusks. It is a genetic thing that comes through from time to time. Most elephants have tusks. Some of them, though, are born without them. Oh, very good. Taylor McCurdy has got something very exciting for you.
I don't know, they were coming to us, but I can't hear. Right, hello everybody, sorry, we're just trying to keep up with our lions. We have got 5 lovely lioness, my favorite of the big cats, and they are currently hunting. They're looking for something to eat. I haven't quite figured out what they're on the trail of, but they've been searching for something. They stop every now and then, they listen, they're trying to pick up the scent of maybe buffalo, zebra, impala, wildebeest, something like that. You see them listening intently. Now this incredible ecosystem backs onto the safari town of South Africa called Hoedspruit. And you won't believe it, but there's these beautiful wilderness estates that literally lie on the edge of this reserve. Every now and then you might hear some sounds that actually sounds like I can hear some anti-poaching dogs or something like that just off in the distance barking. But they've still got quite a way to go before they get anywhere near those boundaries. But this area that they're moving around in is perfect hunting for the lions. Tall grass, lots and lots of shrubs, and you could see that their beautiful coats blend into that vegetation. Unfortunately not you, this is so live. This is happening right now. I'm sitting in South Africa. I don't even know what the time is. The time is 7:15 in the morning. This is happening right now. How crazy is that? That you are watching lionesses who have just split up. One's gone that way, one's gone here, and another 3 have gone down there, and they're looking for something. I think that they've maybe picked up on the scent. I'm going to just stop ahead. There's a few up in the road. Let's just stop like that. We have a quick view. So they're going to be moving around fairly quickly, but also very quietly. There's a lioness there. You see how patient she's being. So they were all following one another in a line, but now they've fanned out, which is very typical of lions when they are hunting. If they can try and get their prey at different angles, that's what they're going to do. I don't know what they've seen inside here, though. Like I said, with all this grass around here, it's really, really good grazing ground for many of the different herbivores. This is so exciting, though. I'm definitely going to try and keep up with them. I'm going to try and find a nice way around. But while we do that, off we go back across to the Sabi sand to another one of Africa's giants.
And you're back. Our elephants have not done too much since you were with us. They're just slowly feeding in the vegetation here. We were about to reposition, try and get you another view, but we might just sit for a moment and watch this little fella trying to use that trunk. We were talking about the trunk before. It takes an elephant 2 years to figure out how to start using the trunk. Oh, you can see he's not quite as efficient as the adults are. Bear in mind, the food and everything it uses the trunk for generally has to go to the mouth. Oh, very cute. I love spending time with elephants. We can get in amongst a herd and get in surrounding you. Just listening to the sounds of them feeding. Oh, hello, shrimp. You want to know how old these elephants are? They're very range. That female that walked past before, she's an old girl, so she's probably in her late 40s, maybe even early 50s. It's not easy to tell with the old females. But then ranging in age, calves from about a year all the way up. Elephants will breed every 3 years or so. Should we move? I think we should move. Just move slightly for you here so we can get another view. A little family unit, you see. The females will have their babies, and then by the time the youngsters reach, the boys anyway, reach 14 to 16, they get pushed away and they hang around on the outside of the herd, or go join up with other bulls. But the girls will stay in the herd for life. They might split off at some stage if the herd gets too big and the food resource decreases. They're quite relaxed over here. Let's see if we can age this little youngster in the bush. You're right. You little cutie. He's 3 or 4 years old. It's normally you can see when they're next to the mum. You can tell their age by how high up on mum's tummy they are. Olds fit right underneath mum's belly, and they progressively get bigger. When you can see an elephant calf eating like that on his own, then you know he's more than 2.5, 3 years old. They rely on mum's milk for the first 2 years or so of their life, trying to figure out how to use that trunk. Like, look at her. She's using the tusk and the trunk to break off the branches of the leaves. And she's actually looking, it seems, for some of the bark inside those sticks. Lots of moisture and nutrients. Plants have got enormous amounts of medicinal value, and elephants are able to access it. Trunk can make for very selective feeding, and the tusk can help in gouging into the bark and stripping the bark off, almost like using a knife. She's using the tusk to break the little sticks. Let's just listen to the sounds of them feeding. Broken, you say this is so awesome. Yes, we are truly, truly blessed to be able to view these animals naturally in the wild. You wouldn't think it, but we're surrounded by about 30 odd elephants. They just melt into the vegetation. Bol, they are so magical. You are so correct. Such a magical species. I love spending time with them because they're always doing stuff. Elephants are always moving, feeding, playing. When they swim, it's quite something to behold. And the elephants are always good value. You can never go to an elephant head and go, oh, no, these guys are boring. They're always doing something. She's just had a big poo. So we call them ecosystem engineers, elephants, because they're able to break the vegetation down and change the structure. If you look around us, you'll see some trees and grasses. An elephant's able to change the structure, change the landscape, move the shade from one tree to another by pushing branches on the ground. And they're very, very important for that. We also call them keystone species. And what that means is if we took elephants out of the system would not be the same. The system relies on elephants to create damage, to create destruction, to move things around. And also their feeding of all those nutrients and minerals off of the trees is deposited in an enormous amount of dung. You saw that dung pile I saw before. Elephants are dropping dung all the time. And that is ecosystems for many, many small organisms that rely on their poo for survival. But it sounds like we're going to be going from the biggest to one of the smallest.
So not much has changed since you've all been gone. As you can see though, the only thing that has changed is that the sun has finally peaked over the mountain range north of us, and it is starting to slowly warm us up. It was 9 degrees this morning, a very chilly morning. And this particular young male seems to be trying to take as much advantage of the sun rays on his belly as he can. Something that you often see with lions when they want to cool down, put their belly in the air in the wind. But I think maybe he's just trying to warm his belly up a little bit there. Now, I do believe that Steve was talking about the dynamics of elephants and the male dynamics more so. And in some ways, lions have very similar dynamics. So just like elephants who get kicked out just before they become sexually mature, or should I say elephant bulls get kicked out just before they become sexually mature, or around the same time, the exact same thing happens with lions. So we've got 5 young males here who are just around a year old. And in about a year and a half, they will be kicked out by the dominant males. and it is around the time that they become sexually mature. And although they have just become sexually mature, it doesn't mean that they are able to mate. Physically, yes, they can mate, but females wouldn't want to mate with such young males because these males still have to prove themselves. So you'll probably only find at around 5 years old, they will be able to have a pride of lions, and generally that's the age that you'll see them mating with females. And it is around that time when these males will get kicked out that the mothers of these 5 cubs will go back into estrus, and so that's when the 2 dominant males of this pride will be able to mate with them. And it's going to be a very tough time for these 5 males because they're going to become completely independent from the pride. They're going to hunt by themselves. So Andrea, we've got 3 cubs that are a year old now, and then 2 cubs who literally turn a year next month. So they're still fairly young and probably unable to hunt by themselves yet. They've still got quite a while till they're going to be able to join up with the pride to be able to hunt. So now that they are pretty much fully dependent on their mothers. But like I was saying, in about a year and a half time, they're going to become independent from their mothers, and they're going to have to hunt all by themselves. And you'll probably find that all 5 of these males may stay together, and that just improves their chances of being able to hunt, being able to defend themselves against other prides of lions, particularly big dominant males. And then when they're around 4 or 5 years old, they're going to look to take over a pride. Now, if there's 5 of them, it's going to be much easier for them to be able to chase out the dominant male of the pride that they're going to want to control. And so there's a fairly good chance the 5 of them may stick together. Oops, something just caught the attention of the one male on the right. You can see he just lifted his head up. No, nothing too serious, and carried on feeding. So Oliver, that is a very interesting question. I have once seen a documentary when a single lioness was able to kill a fully grown buffalo bull, which is very rare. That's quite unusual. Normally what would happen is you'd need at least a couple of lionesses, 3 or 4, and ideally at least 1 male. Males are integral in hunting buffalo, and the reason why, Oliver, is that they're much bigger and stronger than the females, and they'll use their weight and their strength to be able to pull that buffalo down. It's generally quite unusual for only 1 or 2 lions to hunt a buffalo because the risk versus reward factor is not in their favor. It is dangerous to hunt buffalo with those big horns, and if only 2 of them try to hunt and kill the buffalo may injure them and even fatally wound them. And so for them, it's rather better to go hunt something like a warthog or an impala, which will fill their bellies and doesn't have as much risk to that hunt. Now, a young giraffe like this, so this giraffe would have been about 6 foot tall, and you only probably need 1 lioness to be able to take down a young giraffe like this. And I'm assuming that maybe the mother wasn't around. When giraffe are born for a couple of weeks, the mother will often leave them in an open area with long grass. So Ruchu, on average, they reckon that lions are only active for about 4 hours of the day. So whether the 20 hours they completely sleep, I don't think that they go into necessarily a deep sleep for 20 hours, but you do find that they rest for about 20 hours of the day, and for a large majority of that they are completely passed out. And the reason why lions, compared to all the other animals, particularly predators, tend to do far less is because, as they say, they're king of the jungle. They don't have too much that they need to worry about. When they've got full bellies, they can rest for a couple of hours, even days. I've seen lion prides sit in the exact same spot for about 2 or 3 days after feeding on a carcass, and probably for most of that time slept. And right now we have at least 1 sleeping lion. The adult female that was next to us earlier did get up, walk towards the carcass. The cubs grunted at her and said, "Nope, not your time to feed." And she's laying down just on the other side of that long grass, and she's just going to wait patiently now for the 4 youngsters that are busy feeding to stop feeding and let her have a chance. It's very normal at this age that the youngsters bully the adults off of the kill. Tish, no, I would most certainly never dare to touch a lion. As you can see that these lions aren't paying any attention to us at all at the moment, and that is because they've become very accustomed and used to us being in the vehicle. They're used to myself busy talking, but something that they're not used to is us walking around and certainly not interacting with them. And if I was to try and approach these lions and touch them, they'll do one of two things. They would either run away because they feel that I'm a threat towards them, or because I'm a threat towards them, they also may attack me. And I do like having both my hands, Tish. So no, I would most certainly not even dream of touching a lion. You'll notice that the one youngster is busy walking around on the outskirts. Oh, he's just picked up something. That's exactly what I thought he was doing. He was looking for some scraps. Now, I can't really see exactly what it is. I'm a bit lower down to the ground. There's grass in my way, but it did look like maybe a stomach lining or some intestines. Oh, it's a tail. Oh my word, he's got the tail in his mouth. You can see towards the right was the base of the tail, and then the left was the long black. So KK mate, you may have just heard me say that that youngster just picked up the tail, and you would have noticed that the tail had very long black hair, and they are busy feeding on a giraffe at the moment. Unfortunately for this giraffe, it is a newborn. Judging by the size of the ribs, I reckon it's maybe only a couple of days to a week old. And also judging by the size of the tail that youngster's busy trying to feed on at the moment. So there is often a sort of runt of the litter, and I wonder if the one that's feeding on the tail now isn't that particular runt. Be a little bit wary of moving towards the carcass, always on the outskirts, and now has picked up that tail. And what might happen a little bit later on is you often see tails and ears of animals become sort of like prizes, and they might end up playing, if this cub doesn't eat the tail, they might end up playing with that tail and almost like a bit of tag. One runs with it and the others try and grab it, and they practice tackling each other and trying to get the tail away from different members of the pride. The adults most likely won't get involved with that game. It will probably just be the 5 of them. But at the moment, I think they're far too preoccupied to trying to fill their belly up as much as they can, because they also don't know if there's going to be another pride of lions coming this way, and particularly the males who are dominant of this pride. If those 2 dominant males, the Bahala males, come over to this pride, they will chase the lions off. So they're trying to fill their bellies as much as they can before they get interrupted by probably their fathers, who I think could be in this area. We had tracks of them around here yesterday. All right, so while we look at these young cats on the ground, I believe somewhere out there is a cat in a tree.
Look at what has happened. We missed the action just by minutes. The lions gave us the slip and they moved into the tall grass, as you saw. And then they sounded like they chased another one of the big cats, a leopard, straight up this marula tree. Look at that. Now, it's on very flimsy branches at the moment, but lions aren't particularly good tree climbers like leopards are. So this leopard is standing as high up in the top of the tree as it possibly can. It literally couldn't go any higher than what it is now. Now, lions and leopards, hyena, cheetah, none of them like one another. And if the opportunity arises, they will kill one another. So that's why this leopard has raced up to the top of the tree, because it definitely doesn't stand a chance against 5 lionesses. Now remember, this is live and it is an interactive show, so please hashtag WildEarth with your questions, or if you are watching with our new audience, the 10-cent video viewers, please comment in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. We have actually parked a little bit of a distance away because I wanted to show you how incredible it is to just see a leopard in the top of a tree. But I would like to go in a little bit closer and see if we can't see what those lionesses are up to. You can see how dense the vegetation is below them. Look at that. I can't even see where those girls are and what they're doing. But that leopard is lucky that those lions don't try and climb up that tree. Because it's not that they can't climb. Lions can go up trees quite easily. It's coming down that is the problem, and that's where leopards are very much more adapted. Very powerful shoulders. They're very well balanced cats. This is crazy. This is so exciting. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to try and find a way in here. Let's try and do this very quickly, because I'd like to see if those lionesses are down below. So it's very thick though. Debbie, that's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to if those lions are down below the leopard. You see, I can't go in this way. I think we're going to have to come in from the other side. Sorry, it's just too thick. There's so many fallen trees around here. So I think I'm going to try and find a gap. I might be able to get a gap just up ahead. But the leopard is looking down. It actually moved a little bit. I can't see if it's a male or female leopard just yet. Let's try and go through here. We'll squeeze through all these branches. They've all got thorns on them. Hiding on, that tall tree that leopard is sitting in is a marula tree. Looks like a marula. Yeah, it is a marula, which is a fantastic tree. Elephants love to feed on the leaves and also the fruit, and it's a firm favorite of leopards to sort of sleep in. And as you can see, it's made for a very good escape route as well. Sorry, we're almost there. Almost there. Oh, the leopard, I think, is making a run for it. I'm just stopping quickly and momentarily. So shifted slightly. I don't know where the lionesses are. I can't see them anymore. There we go, sorry. Let's see if we can try and get a better view of this leopard. There we go. Yeah, this must be very stressful. It looks like a male leopard. I can just see the back end of it now. There's been a lot of young male leopards roaming around here, but I'm still familiarizing myself with these beautiful big cats. There's so many of them. Hello, boy. You can see his tail is swishing side to side. He's obviously a little bit nervous. I wonder if these lionesses have moved off, especially if he's coming down. He must be feeling brave. He must be thinking that the lions have moved off. And they were so hungry, those big cats. So perhaps they've grown bored of him. Pengfei, as we watch this leopard, you'll see how well balanced he is. Occasionally leopards do fall out of trees, but it's normally not when they're mature. It's normally when they're quite young and they're still learning to power all those muscles. So it can be quite comical to watch young leopard cubs climb up of trees and then they stand on branches that can't quite hold their weight. But a leopard of this age will be very well equipped. But you know what, it might happen where they do stand on a branch that's worn a bit thin, or if they are racing up the tree to try and get away from something like lions, they could make a mistake. But normally leopards are very well equipped to be up in trees. They hone in on those tree climbing skills from when they are very, very young. You can see how he's scanning, he's looking around, he's just making sure that he doesn't make a mistake. Because if he comes down too soon and those lionesses get another view of him, they definitely are going to chase him once again. Just having a quick scan around. I still can't see those lionesses, but again, they blend in so well. They could just be waiting. Just another morning in Africa. Leopard, you got very, very lucky. That could have ended terribly for him. So leopard and lions are definitely in competition with one another. They both hunt mammal species of all sorts. Obviously, a pride of lions needs to catch something a little bit bigger than a leopard. A leopard of this size will probably be hunting Impala or some other small antelope species of sorts. So that's why they will fight with one another. Fossil, if you look very carefully at that leopard's tail, I know he's resting it up in the tree, but if you also watch his ears, you can see that he's on high alert, that he's nervous. He keeps twitching his tail, and that's almost like the brain of the leopard. You can tell sort of what they're thinking and what their mood is. Very much like a house cat or even your dog at home. You watch what their ears do. If their ears sort of go flat back, you know that they're angry, or but his ears are pricked forward, and that's because he's alert. So he's looking around right now. Just like I said, just to make sure that those lionesses are not going to come back. It looks like he's going to maybe make his way down. He's obviously felt comfortable enough to come halfway down the tree. You can see looking back at us, checking over his shoulder, and he does look like a youngish leopard too. He doesn't look particularly old. Still no sign of those lionesses, so they must have moved off by now. They must have carried on looking for breakfast. I didn't think that that's what the lionesses were going to spook out of the grass. There must have been something else in here initially. Perhaps they were hunting the same prey. There's lots of impala that live in these thickets. This is perfect, which is the most common antelope species that we'll see out on safari. Hopefully we'll be able to show you at some point. It wouldn't be the first time that two of the apex predators in Africa end up hunting the same herd of animals. It actually happens more often than you think. But thank you for sending all your questions through. It's been great to answer all of them, and keep sending them in. So, with leopards, their territory size varies. I think that's what you're asking about, Yak, is the animal's territory. So in this area, they don't have enormous territories. There's so much food available for them. They're typically smaller, so it could just be a couple of kilometers squared. Whereas if you move to, say, the coastal areas of South Africa, where we have the Cape mountain leopard, which is a slightly smaller subspecies of leopard, their territories are enormous and can be a couple of 100 kilometers squared. But here, we're very, very fortunate. Leopards literally fall out of the trees. If you want to come and see leopards on safari, the greater Kruger National Park, this wilderness, this ecosystem is the best place in the country to see these beautiful spotted cats. It doesn't get much better than this, and you can see they're quite relaxed as well. Well, with the presence of our vehicles. He is slightly nervous, but again, it's just because of the lions. So leopards can run at an incredible speed, and so can lions. But Fulton, yes, the leopards, well, that's why the leopard would have gone up this tree. But the lions definitely could have caught up to him. But his best chance at getting away from 5 lionesses charging towards him, and lions have a charging speed of 22 meters per second, so they won't be able to keep that up for very long, but they definitely pick up the pace. His best bet was to get up to the top of the tree, because even though, like I said, lions can climb the trees, he can climb them 3 times as fast as they could. And he also knows that he's got incredible balance. You can see how long his tail is. He'll use that to help balance, and he spends more time up in the tops of the trees than the lions do, so he can climb a lot higher. Also, the weight difference between the 2 cat species is quite significant. So this male leopard, maybe he weighs about 60 kilograms or so now, but a big male leopard can weigh up to about 80 kilograms, whereas a lioness is weighing in, close to 150 kilograms. So the weight difference on those branches is quite significant. Watch how elegantly he'll come down that tree. But he's not being too hasty about it just yet. Taking his time. He has to be so cautious. He'll be using his hearing, his sense of smell, his eyesight to make sure that he's absolutely certain that those lionesses are not waiting at the bottom for him. I'd be a little bit reluctant to come down. I'd probably spend most of the morning up there. But I think what he wants to do is get down and go in the opposite direction of those lionesses. So that should actually help us with the relocation of the lionesses too. Is that if he jumps down and comes towards us, we know that those lions have gone further south and have not come north. And that was their general direction. It's actually a beautiful morning out here. It's still, there's very little wind. The sun is starting to warm everything up. Now, one of the other incredible things that you can do while you're on safari is when you're in a vehicle, most of the time the cars have got no roof. So we have these open safari vehicles. So Jason, yes, I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but I am safe. What we won't do when we are on safari is stand up in these open vehicles or stick your arms out or break sort of the solid silhouette of the car. So earlier in the show, I was talking about how we interact with these animals on a regular basis, and the animals see the vehicles constantly too. So we have a healthy respect for the environment, the animals, and the animals have a respect for us. So, like I said, we're always watching their behavior. And they're used to the shapes of the cars, so they're not too particularly bothered. But as soon as you stand up and you do something that they're not used to, then they might run away. So we want to keep a low profile. But they have no interest in us. They just walk past the cars, that's how relaxed they are, and they carry on and do their thing. It's quite an exhilarating experience. But even to just be at this distance away from a leopard, I don't know about you, but my adrenaline was pumping even as we were watching those lions sling through the grass, because at any moment anything could just happen, as it has this morning. And we must have missed it by just minutes. We tried to go around to another road to see if we could catch the lionesses coming out. And it's so thick in here. So many trees. Thank goodness, luckily for this leopard, because if we'd been out in a big open plain, it would have been a bit tricky. All right, now we've been speaking a lot about prey species and things that predators hunt. It seems as though Tswalu has got one hiding away.
Yes, I do. I have none other than the beautiful Kudu. There's a few females around, and they're all just having a snack, a bit of breakfast for the morning. Now, they are browsers. Browsers are animals that eat the leaves from trees, as you can see. A very good example. Right there. And that's opposed to grazers which eat grass. Now, prey species are very important. They feed the predators. But apart from that, they're also kind of the gardeners of the bush. Them, along with elephants, they trim bushes, trim grasses, and really, really important. Without them, predators wouldn't be able to be fed, and the bush would slowly turn from a savanna into a forest, because everything will start to grow and grow and grow, and then you'll get, the landscape will change completely. So it's very interesting how all the animals come together, work together, in order to create the ecosystem and the landscape that we have. And without them, we could have something totally different. Just awesome. Now, I had some elephants nearby that were a little bit nervous, and when I came here, these guys were a little nervous too. If you'd like to know why they're nervous, you can always ask, but don't worry, I'll tell you as well. And you can pop your question into the question comment box for our 10-cent viewers, or you can use the hashtag WildEarth. You can ask all those questions. And I'd be so happy to have a discussion about it. It's so nice to be able to share our experience and our knowledge and these animals with all of you across the world. Especially our new viewers on board today. Now, they would be a little bit nervous if, say, they smelled a predator nearby, or they heard it. You can see that they have very, very large ears, and those ears are very good at picking out direction of sound. You can see they're quite cone-shaped in a way. They're not flat, so that's very good at detecting the direction of sound. And they're very, very reliable, Kudu, when the alarm call. So I thought, if the elephants are a little bit nervous, and the Kudu were a little bit nervous when I arrived, let's just stop and watch them. A breeze has just come through now. If there is a predator nearby, then the scent of it would be carried. And see if they get nervous, but they seem pretty happy. So I'm going to move on, and I'm going to send you over to Ngala. Apparently they've got a lovely elephant for you.
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala, everyone. We have got a very, very relaxed elephant here, and it has been spending a lot of time around this tree at the moment, and that's why we can't really see it too well, but it's basically doing a full circle around this tree. And the way that we found this elephant is we were actually stopping and looking at a herd of Impala, and we just saw this tree in the distance shaking from side to side quite vigorously. And this elephant would have gone and pushed up and basically started headbutting the tree to try and get the fruit of the tree to fall down. And so he's basically just walking around sniffing out the fruit that he was able to drop from the tree. And so he's moving through this quite long grass, and so he'll be having to use his very, very acute sense of smell to move around and locate the fruit in the grass and just one by one pick it up and put it into his mouth. Slowly Passing is asking a question as to why the elephants don't attack us. And Slowly Passing, it's got a lot to do with the elephants getting used to the vehicles. So just like you've been watching lions and leopards and other elephants in the different parts of the country on this live broadcast, they've just been completely habituated, or they've gotten completely used to the vehicles. And so they're very confident in themselves because they're so big, so they know that they're the biggest animal in the area. If they wanted to, they could chase us away. And so luckily we've just got them so used to the vehicles that they don't consider us as a threat, and they don't need to come straight towards us. So Gary, you're asking a question as to why the elephant's ears are so big. And it's got a lot to do with how elephants cool themselves down. And if you watch an elephant on a hot day, they flap their ears from side to side. And in doing that, there's lots of little veins at the back of their ears that will basically, the elephant's heart pumps the blood out into the tip of the ears. They will flap, the blood gets cooled down, and then it goes straight into the rest of the body. It does look like he's moving away, and I wonder if he's going to head towards another tree to shake. That will be very, very cool if we get to see that. We are going to stick around with this elephant and see if maybe we get the opportunity to see him headbutting that tree for us. But whilst we try and let him do that, I think we'll send you across to some action-packed lions.
So these young males are still gorging themselves at this carcass. We've just had one get up and walk towards this tree in front of my vehicle. And for those of you who have been following over the last couple of weeks that we've been filming here at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, you'll know that this particular pride, the Ngala Pride, is a pride that loves to climb trees, and particularly marula trees. And you can see right in front of the vehicle over here, we've got a marula tree. And one of the adult females did come over, start to claw at the tree, probably try to get rid of any dirt that was in the tree, as well as to strengthen those tendons, sharpen their claws. And we thought she was going to climb into this tree, but unfortunately she just clawed on the tree and lay down. So we're hoping maybe as it starts to warm up a little bit and this wind starts to drop down, they might climb up into this tree. Oh, have a look there on the right. You've got the leg of the giraffe. For most of the time we've actually been battling to see that it's a giraffe, although we know that they're feeding on a giraffe. You can see now as that youngster lifts the leg up, you can see the sort of spotty pattern that the giraffe has on their leg. Not much meat left on that part of the leg, but he's going to try and carry it off away from his brothers and feed on what little meat is left. And you've got another youngster busy cutting away on the left. You'll see he's busy using the side of his teeth. Those are known as carnassial shears. And he's using those to cut away at the hide to try expose the meat and the fat below the skin, while his two brothers to the right just play with each other. Very usual for lions of around 1 year old. Even though their bellies are full and they should go and sleep, they just want to have fun. And like I'm sure you've heard many occasions, maybe not the 10-cent viewers who are viewing for the first time, but these lions, the reason why they play like this is it's practice. Practice for one day when they're older how to fight. Oh, I think he just got his claw into his brother there. Practice hunting. They might get up and start chasing each other around. Nope, he's decided, I've had enough of playing with you, it's time to feed again. Typical males. The moment there's any little bit of space in their belly, they need to fill that gap with some meat. And now it looks like the other male's gone towards the leg of the giraffe. So you'll see they've completely stripped from about the knee up to the thigh, and that's where most of the meat is on the leg. And so they would have eaten all of that meat, and there's only a little bit of skin left between the knee and the ankle of the giraffe. And I can't imagine they're going to spend too much time busy feeding there. Alright, so while we keep watching these young males busy munch away at this giraffe, let's head over to Eric at Ngala, who apparently has an elephant doing the exact same thing.
So as Jared said, from lions munching away and feeding on a carcass to this elephant, and just look at the difference in behavior from those lions are probably fighting with one another and acting quite aggressively to this elephant who couldn't be more relaxed, and he doesn't have to compete like those lions do. And so he can just basically choose his moments. And he's moved away from the tree with the fruit on, and now he's mostly focusing on the grass. And just watch how he feeds. So he wraps his trunk around the grass, and then every single time he does about 3 or 4 flicks. And that's just to get rid of any dead material that he doesn't necessarily need. So he is trying to be as selective as he possibly can and just getting as much nutrients in per bite. Wifey, you asking if female elephants do have tusks? And with African elephants, absolutely yes, they do. I would say a female probably would have tusks around about that length, and if not a little bit shorter and much thinner. And so that's basically around the biggest tusks you would see in a female elephant. You will see a few with quite long tusks, but they tend to be much, much thicker. If you go across into the east of the world, into Asia, the females lack tusks there. And it's probably one of the biggest differences between African and Asiatic elephants. Whereas this bull, I mean, he looks pretty young. which means that his tusks are going to keep growing and growing and growing until eventually, if he's got good genetics, those tusks could get to the point where they reach 2.5 meters long. And what's really nice about this one is how symmetrical the tusks are. They're almost exactly the same length. If he turns his head slightly, you might be able to see that they almost line up with one another perfectly there. And now that we've got a beautiful shot, look at the difference in sharpness between the tusk on the left and the tusk on the right-hand side. And the one on the left is much, much sharper. The one on the right is more blunt. So when it comes to feeding, say, for example, stripping bark off of a tree or digging for roots in the sand, he prefers to use the one on the right, which means that he's more right-tusked dominant. And that left one, over the years, will tend to grow a little bit longer than the one on the right, just because there's less wear and tear on both tusks. And see, just look at his eyes, like half closed. So, yeah, he's half closed feeding, not really going to be doing anything. So we actually might end up leaving him now. What we'll do is send you straight back to andBeyond Phinda, where Jared might have some interaction shortly.
So for all of you out there who are sensitive viewers, I do advise you to block your ears right now. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I have a sad story to tell you. This giraffe that we're busy showing you at the moment, I suspect is the mother of the calf that these lions are busy feeding on. Thus is the circle of life, but quite traumatic to think that she's busy watching on as the 4 young male lions feed on her calf. And you can see she's trying to move around. She's been watching them for about 5 minutes or so, walking around, looking for a gap, looking to see who's around. I mean, maybe she doesn't know that they fed on her or killed her calf last night. She may have left her calf in this area, moved off to one of the water holes nearby, and this is the first time that she's coming back. Or maybe she was here when they killed the giraffe. We don't know, unfortunately, but I can see that her teats are lactating. So this is a female that has a calf, and judging by her behavior and the fact that she's here by herself, I think that this is most certainly the mother to the calf that these lions are feeding on. Now, she doesn't actually know this, but that is exactly where I saw the lioness with the 2 young cubs go towards. And she is quite a large female. I don't think she's a fully grown female, but she's there and thereabouts, and could potentially be in danger from these lions. But I think fortunately they're going to worry about feeding on this calf. Butterfly, you are most certainly correct. The circle of life does most certainly hurt, and it is quite sad to think that she's watching on as her poor calf gets eaten. She's getting closer and closer. We've been watching her now for the last 5-10 minutes. We saw for the first time when she was about 200 meters away from these lions, and right now she's probably about 60 meters or so. So a young giraffe, it's very easy to hunt. They would hunt it just like they would hunt any antelope. A giraffe calf of about this age that they're busy feeding on would be about 6 feet tall, and they could easily trip that calf up. Now, a large female like the one that we're busy looking at the moment, if Marcel can quickly go back to her, a female like that would need quite a few lions to try and trip her down, and you'll probably find one will try jump up onto the back and sort of sway, dig the claws in and sway from side to side. Hopefully she'll topple over from the top, and then the others will bite down towards the legs and trip her. The moment she falls down, it's pretty much game over. It's not that easy for a giraffe to be able to stand up, and so once they're down, unfortunately, that is it for the giraffe. But they do have a defense against lions. They have a very strong kick and a They'll either buck or rear towards the lions, and the lions have to be very careful when they're hunting giraffe, because a kick from a giraffe could break a jaw, could break a rib, which could puncture a lung, and obviously any of those would be a fatal injury towards the lions. You may have noticed, for those bird lovers out there, if you look just to the right of her, there's a branch that's pointing straight towards her. There's a black bird, and that is called a fork-tailed dronga. And as she walks through the long grass, they're busy catching the insects that she's busy flushing out. And the birds that took off from her neck maybe about 30 seconds ago, those are the red-billed oxpeckers, which are the birds renowned for feeding on the ticks of most of the herbivores. Oh, the little cubs are playing with each other. There's so much action happening here. We've got a giraffe off to our left, and we've got young cubs busy playing and feeding at the same time. Quite interestingly, one of the adult female of this pride is watching in the direction towards that giraffe, probably more out of being curious than anything. If it was a young giraffe, she may get up and hunt it. Although they've got a meal, lions are opportunistic, and they wouldn't know when their next meal is. %, viewer, that is a question that depends on area to area, and I guess the density of lions towards those areas. The only predators that would really hunt giraffe calves would be lions, very rarely, but is seen cheetah males, particularly coalitions, and hyenas. But they have a fairly good success rate. To be honest with you, I'm not sure on the exact statistic of the giraffe calf that would make it to adulthood, but in my opinion, and what I've noticed in the years I've been a guide, it's probably around 50% of that or so. But I do stand corrected. But particularly the first year of that calf's life, it is very vulnerable to the attack of lions. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be able to defend itself. It's not big enough and strong enough to be able to really defend itself against lions, and so it would have to hope that the adults are around. And you do sometimes see adults chasing lions off of the youngsters that they're trying to kill. It seems now that these lions are probably quite full, and that's why they're now playing with their food more than actually worrying about eating. Only one of the adult females here, the other one's moved off, and these 5 youngsters, and a big giraffe, particularly a male, would be able to run towards the lions. As he runs towards the lions, stomp down, kick out at the lions. That female that we saw walking past, I think even she would be able to fight off a lion that was trying to hunt her. But one of the big advantages that a giraffe would have over all the other animals is that they're nice and tall, and they'd be able to see lions from a long distance away. And because they can see lions from a long distance, they generally wouldn't get too close to them. And if the lions were to walk towards them, they would end up just moving out of the way. All right, while we talk about one tall animal, let's head over to Steve, who I think has the largest land mammal on Earth.
Thanks, Jared. It is always hard to see lions eating baby animals and the mum hanging around and watching. It's not the easiest thing in the world to see, but what we've got here indeed is some tracks. Tracking is really, really interesting, and let me just show you quickly over here. Can you get this one, Davy?
Yeah.
This is an elephant track, everybody. Now, you might wonder, how on earth do you know it's an elephant track? This is a young elephant, first of all. You'll see the shape is quite oval. You see it's oval, and you can see the cracks in the feet. The bottom of the foot of an elephant, you've got little cracks in it, so it leaves a very, very characteristic shape in the sand. and this is the back foot. Elephant's tracks, the front foot is quite round, and the back foot is very, very oval, because the weight is on the shoulder. Now, over here is actually the front foot, right over there. You might not be able to see it that easily, so I'll show you this one over here. Can you see this one, Davy?
Yeah.
There we go. There's the round track over there. And here is the oval one in front. So you want to work out direction of the elephant. So we go back to this one, which is quite easy to see. Here is the front foot, and the back foot has stepped on top of the front foot. Okay, and over here it's quite shiny. The track is very well defined, and in the front the elephant has kicked the sand with its toe. So the direction is very easy to identify as that. And because the back foot is sort of on, pretty much on top of the front foot, you can tell the elephant wasn't walking very, very quickly. Okay, so that's a wonderful elephant track, and you can actually see, if you go along here, how shiny they are. So it's the tracks of a breeding herd of elephants heading in that direction. So if I was going to help someone to find these, I'd say, everyone, we found tracks of a breeding herd, and they are heading east. And it's quite easy to see east because there's the sun over there. Now, a bigger track over here. This is a bigger individual over here. Look how much bigger that is there. So there we go. Lots of cracks. So this one's older, so a lot more cracks than the youngster. And David, you want to know how fast elephants can run? And it's an interesting one, David. They don't actually run. Elephants can't run, but they walk very fast. Have you seen those power walkers in some athletics events? They walk very quickly. An elephant can go at about 40-odd kilometers an hour. So that's just over 20 miles an hour. So 40 to 45 kilometers an hour. That's very quick. If you think about the fastest human on the planet, Usain Bolt, he can move at 37, 38 kilometers an hour. An elephant at a fast walk, 40, 45. No getting away from an elephant if it's chasing you. There's one of those big rules in the bush: you don't ever run. Don't ever run. There we go. We're going to keep moving on. Some wonderful tracks in the sand there of a herd of elephants. And what's nice is when they come and they clean the ground for us over here, is we can then see fresh tracks of other animals, such as leopards, which we are looking for. There's a wonderful female leopard around who's got a little cub, who's about 3.5, 4 months, who we'd love to introduce you to because they are just wonderful. But while we try to look for our elusive cat, let's go back over to andBeyond Phinda, who has got some lazy cats.
So to all the 10-cent viewers who are watching for the first time, please do send through your questions and comments in the comment box below. I would love to be able to answer as many of the questions that I can about these lions and the giraffe that they're busy feeding on. But for now, you can see the two males, who are the same two that were playing with each other earlier, are having a blast of a time. They couldn't even care that the carcass is there. They're busy jumping over the giraffe carcass while they're busy playing with each other. I'm just going to see if I can reposition a little bit. It's going to move slightly to get you all a slightly different view. We've been looking at the same gap and the same part of the giraffe carcass. And hopefully we can get a better view of them busy playing. Hold on, everyone. Keep your hands inside the vehicle. I don't want you to get caught up by any of these thorn trees. Oh, that's a nice view right there. Oh, just completely fell right off that. Story, yes, most certainly lions will still fight over food when they grow up, and actually more so when they grow up compared to now. At this age, the fighting that they do is more growling at each other and the occasional swatting towards each other. But these 5 young males, as they get older, the more testosterone they get, the more that they are going to fight over carcasses. And if they if they do manage to kill something small, you would see quite a lot of fighting over that particular carcass. Because the giraffe like this has quite a lot of meat, I think that's why this pride has been quite placid around this kill. Males don't only fight for food with each other, they will also fight for mating rights. And over the next while, these 5 young males will constantly be trying to show the dominance over each other. And one of the ways that they do compete for dominance is by fighting with each other. There we go, pouncing on him. Oh, biting the tail. So Sing, it depends, I guess, on the age of the lion, and they're not eating meat every single day. So a pride of lions that's this size would only look to hunt maybe twice a week or so, and it depends whether they kill a impala or a buffalo. Depends on the amount of meat that they would eat. I don't think there's a particular number of exact amount of meat that they need to eat per day, but a very big, large male lion. Oh. Just keeping quiet so you can hear them growling at each other. But a very big, large male lion can get about 20 to 30 kgs of meat in his belly. So clearly we are pretty close to the lions. I think one of the advantages is with the camera system that we have here, we are able to zoom in. So I do think we do appear to be closer than what we are. We have parked at a distance that I know is completely comfortable for the lions, and they're not going to react with us being at this distance. But we're close enough that we can see everything that is happening. All right, as the sun starts to warm up a little bit, I'm hoping that these youngsters are going to get more and more active. It seems that they are starting to worry more about playing with each other as opposed to feeding. But while we sit here and wait to see what they're going to do, I believe Trish is busy driving in a riverbed.
I am in a riverbed, and I love taking a bit of a drive through the bed. We sometimes call it a little cruise. This dry riverbed is called the Mulwati, and it's full of stunning trees. Now, when we're out here on safari, it's wonderful to see all the big, hairy, scary animals. But it's also awesome to see the tiny little insects, the butterflies, little reptiles, and of course the trees. Now, what you are looking at here is a combination of quite a few different ones. So if we start from the left where you were, BK, where the tiny red leaves were. Here we go. This tree is called a tambuti, and it's actually a protected tree, and it has a latexy substance that it exudes when you break a leaf. It's actually quite toxic. And its scientific name is Spirostachys africana. And it's very noticeable, especially when you break the leaf and you get that latex. So if you want to look for firewood out here, you wouldn't take the firewood from a tambuti, because it can make you very sick. Now, tambutis grow in little thickets, and around them more tambutis start to grow, because they actually change the chemical composition of the soil around them for the benefit of their own seedlings. And that red tinge that we're getting, that's as much wintry color as we get out here, because when we go into winter and it's our dry season, the bush basically goes pale gray, and there isn't much of a transition from those yellows to purples and reds that you get in other areas of the world. But a tambuti does show you this red, and that's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Now if we come, actually, BK, I'm going to swing you across further left, all the way to the tallest tree that you see. More. Further across. Whoa, there we go. That there is a leadwood, Combretum imberbe. And a leadwood is the most protected tree out here. It is very old. They can grow to about 1,000 years old, and then they stay for about 100 years after they've even died. And they're very, very important because their wood has a very high density. It's about 1,000 to 1,200 per meter cubed, which is very, very dense. So it's very, very important for birds, etc. Lovely. Well, I'm happy that I got to show you some trees, but I'm going to send you over to Eric. He's also driving through a riverbed.
So we have come down to the pretty famous Timbavati riverbed. It's basically the largest river that cuts through Ngala. At the moment it's completely dry, so it's just a sandy patch that you can see ahead of us. And we just thought we would stop and just basically show you one or two little things that make this area unique to the different parts of the reserve that we've been seeing this morning. One of the biggest things is the trees that are around here. And I mean, compared to some of the spots in the reserve, these trees are 3 or 4 times bigger. And as a result, they make pretty perfect nesting environments for quite large birds. And a bird in particular that I'm thinking of is vultures. And we've just been watching a vulture fly around, and we think that it's trying to look for some sort of nesting site, because it's got a branch in its mouth and it's flying from treetop to treetop to treetop. And we'll see if we can see it again. I'm sure it hasn't found a suitable spot yet, but just to kind of give you some sort of reference points. Owen's looking at something. What do you see? Okay, there's some monkeys we can see if we can get. But just quickly to show you, this is the area that we're in, this big blue line that cuts the reserve practically in half. And we're somewhere around this spot. We were watching the sunrise over here this morning, and we've done a big loop around here. And so we decided to come down into the riverbed. And can you see those monkeys again? I think they might have disappeared, unfortunately. It'd be really cool to show you them. Those monkeys are sometimes quite important for us if we're looking for large animals, like the leopard and the lion that you've been seeing this morning. Those monkeys give off very specific alarm calls, and we might be able to pinpoint where a predator is coming from. But within this area, I mean, we've got some pretty unique trees. This one here on the left is called an apple leaf. Emma, you're asking if we get snakes in our reserve, and absolutely, yes, we do. At the moment, because it is so cold, most of the snakes are resting up and almost hibernating. So the only time we might see them is if they come out into an open patch of ground to sun themselves. And the most common snake that we see at this time of year, I guess, is a snake called a puff adder. It's a very, very slow-moving snake. So we get to watch it if it's on the road. It's really cool. It's almost like a rattlesnake in a way. Gary, you're asking why the leaves and the trees are so green. So we've got some trees that are evergreen in this area. So that one that Owen's focusing on is a Cape ash tree, and that keeps its leaves on throughout the whole entire winter time. But the tree that you're watching with Trishala is a tambuti tree that we do get along the river, and they drop their leaves at this time of year too. We're in the process of changing from seasons, and so some trees are starting to change and drop their leaves, and others are taking quite a lot longer. But you got deciduous and non-deciduous trees, and most of the trees along the riverbed tend to hold green a lot longer because the water level is much higher up, and so their root systems go down into the water where they can capture water that trees in different parts of the reserve might not be able to get to. So they tend to keep the supply of green and the supply of nutrients for a lot longer than the other trees in the winter time. And if you can go to the left with that tambueti, just to show you the change. So this is a tambueti tree that we'll get to now, and the colors are actually quite beautiful because we're getting some beautiful backlight on it. And this is a tree that I'm sure you saw with Trishala, but just look at the different colors, especially around the fringes of the tree. You're starting to get that slightly yellow and orange color in the leaves. And I'm sure within the next couple of weeks that will completely drop off. But 2 or 3 kilometers away from the riverbed, most of the tambuetis have already lost their leaves completely. And so this is a really nice example to show you how much a tree depends on water around it. It's just, even if we're not watching animals, just to sit and watch this riverbed is really, really cool. Memory, you asking what the temperature is here now, and the wind is pretty, we're keeping things quite a lot colder than I think we'll normally experience, but the sun is warming up nicely. So I think it's probably, I think it was 11 degrees. Okay, so we are going to sit in the riverbed and maybe just soak up the sun for a little bit longer, see if we can warm up ourselves. We'll send you across to another animal who's doing the same.
Thanks very much. They are indeed warming themselves up in the sunshine. A little family of squirrels. Oh, look at the one below there. He's doing some stretches. Look at him. Oh, stretch, stretch. If you make your body much bigger, you get more sun on it, you see. These little fellows are only starting to get active now because they've been hiding in little holes. It's been really chilly this morning, and if you're the size of a squirrel, it's even colder than it is for you or I, who are a little bit more bulky. Just loving the sunshine. Oh, awesome. And there's one doing a bit of grooming at the bottom, looking at his friend, going, time to play. They're very quick and very agile organisms, squirrels. They live in little family groups. There we go. Hello. I'll come and groom you. Start with your feet. It's very important in squirrel society and small mammal society. A little bit of grooming. Here we go. Let me get the warmth to your fingers. Your fingers are cold. How cool are they? Indeed. It's gone to the beauty salon to get a manicure, and now a little bit of a head scratch. We all like head scratches, don't we? That's for sure. Using the teeth, squirrels have got very, very sharp and powerful teeth for breaking open nuts and fruits. And here, utilizing it to clean the fellow, removing any small fleas or parasites there might be, and hoping, of course, that this behavior is going to be reciprocated. There's no point you grooming everyone if no one grooms you back. Very important for what we call allo grooming. Bonds are formed this way. You see it with mating birds all the time. Many of the small mammals as well. It's like, come on, I was enjoying that. Don't stop now. He's under the chin. You know that feeling when you get out of bed in the morning and you just bask in the sun. You're too cold to do anything else. Frozen stiff. Stretch. Here we go. On top of the shoulder, please. we're going to stay right here basking in the sun with these squirrels, and we're going to send you over to Trishala, who's found some antelope.
I am also trying to bask in the sun, much like Steve's squirrels, much like Steve and our Impala. That's these antelope right here. We have a gorgeous herd of rams. These are males, you can see from their horns. Quite a large group. We call this a bachelor herd. It's about 8 males. Again, doing what all animals like to do in the morning, and that is get a snack. And with impalas at the moment, especially the males, a bit of chase and a bit of fighting. And that's because they have some testosterone left over that's coursing through them. When it's breeding time, they have lots of testosterone going through them, or mating season, and the rut is drawing to a close. You still get a bit of the behaviors associated with them because of the chemicals that are left over, but not as bad right now. Hi, Fossil. How are you? You'd like to know if antelopes only eat leaves. No, they don't. So an antelope is a really broad kind of umbrella. There's so many different types of antelopes that have different feeding strategies. But generally, we get grazers and browsers. So the ones that eat leaves would be browsers. And the ones that eat grass would be grazers. You also get mixed feeders. Impalas here are mixed feeders. Here we have one that looks like he's eating, but in fact he is using glands on his face and thrashing or semi-thrashing against that bush. Now, it spoke about the rut. So the rut happens around May, and the shorter day lengths kind of trigger a testosterone production in these males. And that production gets them to be a little bit more aggressive and obviously pursue females to mate. So now we're at the tail end of that, but there is a little bit of that still coursing through them. And that's why you're getting these behaviors that are not quite deliberate. They don't really want to fight. They don't really want to chase each other. But something in their body is telling them to just be a little bit aggressive. And thrashing the bushes, like a lot of them are doing at the moment. You can see right there. You can hear it as well. Behavior like that is also a result of feeling a little bit aggressive still. Oh, and we're all off. Hi, you say Impala are actually so cute? They certainly are. I think they're gorgeous, and if you have any more questions about these Impala, please do drop it into the box, and we will gladly chat about it. In fact, we can even chat about how cute they are. Look at that. Aren't they just a gorgeous antelope? Their horns are stunning. And they're just a very beautiful form. Gorgeous, very delicate and strong at the same time. Anyway, let's send you over to Steve and his sunbathing squirrels while I check out the hyena den one more time.
Good luck, Trish. You're having some laughs there, it sounds like. We are still with our little family of squirrels that are getting more and more active. Done a little bit more grooming, and there we go, those three at the bottom. Let's see what they're doing now. A little bit of grooming for everybody. They do spend a lot of their time on the ground feeding, collecting food, and then obviously the tree is the safety haven for them. They are under threat from small cats, even cats up to the size of leopards. Wild cats, though, specifically very good at catching squirrels. And then also, obviously, predatory birds, such as hawks and eagles. A bit of yoga on the way down. Always important to do your stretches before leaving in the morning. Oh, very nice. Now, how tall am I? Look how long I am. They got very sharp claws. I can hold on to almost anything with those claws. And, oh, we got something up at the top there, Darby. There's a little bit of friendship in the making. Hello. Good morning. Not too camera shy, I see. Nature is a wonderful place, everybody. All sorts of things can happen. You never know what's going to happen next. Looks like they're just snuggling there for some warmth. I can't be certain, though. Might be a little bit more than warmth. I think maybe he wants a piggyback ride down the tree. Darby, what do you think?
Maybe.
Hello, Angel baby. You want to know if this is really a live broadcast? Yes, it is. We're coming to you live from South Africa currently. We are in the Sabi Sands, Djuma Private Game Reserve. It is 8:38 South African time on the 13th of June. So if you want to double check that, I suppose answering your question directly will show you that we are live. And wherever you are in the world, check what is the current time in South Africa. And it is 38 minutes past 8. On Saturday the 13th of June. Live images coming to you from the wonderful African wilderness as our family of tree squirrels all slowly makes their way down the tree to begin a day of foraging. They've been snuggled nice and warm and tightly in their burrow in the tree, and only now starting to get active as the warmth of the sun is able to warm them. Small little critters like this really do lose heat very quickly, so they've got a very high energy demand when it comes to food. Well, these are tree squirrels, and they're almost closely related to animals we might find on the western side. And let's go over to Tswalu Kalahari with Dylan, who's got some very cool animals.
So these are the coolest little animals. These are called meerkats, also known as a suricate. They're not related to cats whatsoever. they're actually very, very closely related to mongooses. Well, they are a kind of mongoose, in fact. So this group, we've been following on and off for the past 3 weeks now, and they've had their ups and downs. The alpha female, which is the one on the far left over there, Mosadi is her name, which means lady or female in Setswana, and she had pups 2 weeks ago. And in that time between then and now, or last week in fact, there was a honey badger that actually raided the den site, the burrow system, and that's about a kilometer distant from where we are now. And we've been searching all over and hoping that there would be some good news, but unfortunately it looks like those youngsters were probably killed by that honey badger. And subsequent to that, we've actually seen 2 honey badgers in the area, which is very, very exciting for us. But it also just points to the fact that these little animals are susceptible, very susceptible to predation. And that probably also is one very important reason why they're always so vigilant. I mean, you can see how this entire group is sitting up, constantly looking around. That by standing up like that, it just gives them that little bit of extra height, looking over the grass. But obviously, I mean, it's not a given that they'll be able to see a predator. I mean, you can get snakes coming in, you can get eagles that'll prey on them. The one good thing in their favor, it's been so cold the past couple of days that snakes and other reptiles, like you get these
Sorry guys, you've lost Tswalu just briefly, but they were showing you some meerkats, and we now have one of their close relatives. These are dwarf mongoose. Good morning. It's so lovely to see these little things. They are very cleverly sitting on the eastern side of this termite mound because they are cold, much like us out here at the moment. But it's warming up, and that's only when you'll see them get out of their mound. They sunbathe on the side for a good period of time before they go out foraging. Now, their small bodies means that they lose heat very quickly, so they have to warm up properly before they get out and about. I'm going to be very quiet. They're making soft noises. It's quite a soft but high-pitched squeak. Everyone's just relaxing. As they start to go out and forage and they communicate with each other a little bit more, that squeaking will become louder and we might be able to hear it. But even for me, it was very, very faint. Hi, Jerry. That is a really important question. You'd like to know if all these small animals are related to rodents, such as, I think you mean this dwarf mongoose or the meerkats that we're seeing at Tswalu. I can understand why they would look like they're related to rodents, but they're not. They are carnivores, so they're in the order Carnivora. In fact, these guys are the smallest carnivores that we get. And when I say carnivores, I mean from that order, Carnivora. So dwarf mongoose as well as other mongooses, white-tailed banded, and the meerkats as well. They are part of the family Herpestidae. And those are the closest relatives, the animals that I had just mentioned. But they are carnivores, not rodents. They are very tiny and very, very cute. Smallest of the guys out here. Anyway, from these tiny things over to some really large mammals with Taylor. Let's go and see.
So you may remember earlier on this morning, you joined us on Pridelands with a big herd of buffalo that were just starting to wake up. Now most of that breeding herd have moved on, and now we're just sitting with the buffalo bulls. So these are the older fellas that are not quite capable of keeping up with the pace of the big breeding herd, which is filled with females and young males, older males, and then of course their youngsters, their calves. But they're doing exactly what we said that they would do. They've woken up, they've had something to eat, they've grazed, and now they're heading towards a dam to go for a drink of water. But they're still a couple of 100 meters away. But you can see that they have picked up the pace and they're not really feeding anymore, so they must be quite thirsty. You can see how enormous these animals are. They are such powerful creatures. This is where the lions needed to be. Those lionesses were going in the wrong direction and perhaps did not pick up the scent of that breeding herd. But that might change. They were very, very busy. But we lost the lionesses in the grass. The leopards all disappeared. You can imagine they were quite nervous. So we thought, let's come back to where we started our safari. And it was worth it. But these are the most impatient of the African animals, the African buffalo. You can see how heavy their heads are with those horns, all the muscles on their shoulders, always walking with their heads dragging along the floor. And it's not an animal that you want to get on their wrong side. Look at that death stare that they give you as they walk on by. Ah, and there's the bird that I was also mentioning to you earlier this morning, the oxpecker. Perhaps you've already seen some this morning. That buffalo doesn't like them, but what those birds do is they're actually a very important symbiotic relationship with a lot of the mammal species. And basically what they do is they hop around on top of the buffalo, or maybe a giraffe, or an Impala, or rhinos, and they will use their beaks and they will pull off all the small ticks, so all the parasites that are feeding on the blood of the mammals. And I think that's one of my favorite symbiotic relationships. Yeah, nature is unbelievably amazing. And the more you sit and watch, the more you learn, which is what I love the most. So you can never get bored when you go on a safari. Even though you might be seeing the same species of animals over and over, they will always do some type of interesting behavior. Something is bothering that buffalo. He's swishing his tail quite a bit. There's a lot of biting insects around here, and that might be another reason why these buffalo are heading towards the water. You can see bits of mud caked on their bodies. They love to wallow around in the mud, and that will put a thick layer on their bodies and help protect them from all those biting flies and other creatures. Now, I just need to quickly turn around because we are facing the wrong way. But I'll get you another view of these buffalo in just a second. This is so awesome. Right, we're going to head in the direction of Leopard Dam and catch up with those buffalo. Off you go back across to Phinda, who have managed to keep their lions.
So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the adult lioness was just waiting for the younger males to move off for her turn to feed. And they moved off about 2 or 3 minutes ago. And now she's taking this opportunity to try and feed on what is left on this carcass. Now, one of the males did try and approach maybe a minute ago, and she was not happy with him being around, and she grunted and growled at him, and he ran off with his tail between his legs. And it seems like now the entire pride is completely passed out in the long grass. We unfortunately can't see them where we are from here. They are maybe about 10 meters to her left. Now, something we have noticed is that this female has quite a lot of scratches on her, and she's bleeding in quite a few parts of her shoulder, her flank, and even towards the end. And so I do think that one or two things happened. One, maybe there was a bit of a scrap over this giraffe carcass last night. Or two, with that lioness with the 2 cubs being here, she was quite grumpy with the pride this morning when we arrived. And maybe there was a bit of an altercation with her and this adult female around this carcass. But it does seem like that it wasn't really any puncture wounds, it was more just claw marks. And when they do fight with members of their pride, occasionally the claws do come out, but they don't come out all the way. And so they will manage to accidentally or on purpose cut their other members of the pride with those very sharp claws. So what we're busy looking at the moment is not much left of this giraffe. We can see the bit of the spinal column. One of the legs has been draped over the spine there, and she's just been standing up and moving the carcass from side to side, trying to find what little exposed meat there is. She has also even been feeding on the hide. Not something they typically feed on. They ideally do want to just look for the meat because that's where most of the protein is. But once they do start to run out of meat, and if they are still hungry, they will feed at the hide, so the skin of the animal. So you can see she's busy standing up now at the moment, using her keen sense of smell, and she's busy smelling around trying to see if she can find any chunks of meat around there. She's got the hide at the moment. Busy flicking it. There's some grass on there. Maybe she's trying to flick the grass off, hoping that while she flicks it like that, maybe she tears some of the hide off of the skin and the bone itself. So you'll see when they feed on the hide, very different to when they're ripping at the meat of the giraffe. There you can see she's kinked her head off to the side. The hide of a giraffe is quite thick and strong, almost like leather, and she's got to use those sharp carnassial shears, so those very sharp teeth down towards the back of her jaw. And you can actually hear at the moment that's her cutting away with those sharp carnassial shears, trying to get chunks of that hide to swallow. You see she just stops and looks around from time to time. And you also notice while she's feeding, her ears are pinned backwards. And by pinning her ears backwards like that, she would be able to hear if any other predator comes up from behind her. So she can see what's in front of her. She's listening to what's behind her, because also while she's busy chewing away, she's making quite a bit of noise. And so that would direct straight into those ears. So by pinning them backwards, she can listen to less of what she's feeding on and more to what's around her. Right, while she carries on feeding on the hide, you can hear her crunching away there. I believe Eric at andBeyond in Ngala has a massive herd of Impala.
Well, we've moved away from the riverbed, as you can see, and we've just come across this beautiful scene of these Impalas, and we've gotten here and spent some time, so that they seem to be pretty relaxed. But there'll always be one of them, at least one of them, watching us. The rest of them have started to lose interest. But what we felt quite interesting is how close knit they were together. They're all in a very, very, very tight bunch. And I think it's for a number of reasons. I mean, Trishana earlier was talking about the rutting season. So I think it's definitely got something to do with that. Within this small little herd, there's one male who might just be out of shot. He's hiding behind the bushes a little bit. But I think an even bigger factor this morning is the weather conditions that we're experiencing. And I mentioned how windy it is down in the riverbed. Now, if you look around them, they're in this small little, almost like this barricaded section where the trees are creating this perfect wind barrier. And so their sense of smell and their sense of hearing isn't as affected as it is in the open, where the wind is just swirling and creating these funny noises and smells that they might not be able to hear. So they're nice and safe. And then with the wind, I mentioned how the wind is very chilly and dropping the temperature, and you can just see how all of them are basically in the sunlight, giving themselves some warmth. Memories, you asking if the female impala will fight? And I've never really seen it myself. I've never seen them competing against one another, so I doubt that they will. I think they have got this mutual respect for one another. They don't necessarily compete against one another for anything. There's lots of resources around, lots of water, so there is no need for them to compete against one another. Completely opposite with the males, though. I'm sure you've been hearing about how rams fight. Now, Millie, you're asking about the size of the horns when they're first born, and they're actually born without horns, and they start growing them from probably, as early as a month or so, I guess. If we can, on the left-hand side of the herd, just show you what a young impala male looks like, and you can see the size of the horns, and this one there that's flicking its head around. There we go. So you'll be able to see those small little horns, and they're growing straight up at the moment. And so this one is, must be about 6 months old now, somewhere around there. And see, there's another male right next to him. And so at that age, from this age, they just start getting bigger and bigger until eventually, when they're about 4 or 5 years old, they become completely fully grown. And just see the size difference. That one at the back is an adult female. These two that are trying to groom one another really nicely there are young males. He's squinting when he looks into the sunlight there. But really beautiful to see this interaction between the two of them. Sassy Cassie is asking if the impalas enjoy sunbathing, and I would say so. It looks like they are really soaking up the sun, and I think that's why it's so cool to see them all in this tiny little group. So they've found a nice sheltered spot where the sun is available, and they will all be sunbathing. I think, Cassie, it depends on the time of year, though. I mean, at this time of year in the summertime, you wouldn't see an impala out in the sunlight like this. They'll all be moving into the shade, and they'll almost be competing over as much shade as they possibly could find. But now, because the conditions are much cooler, they're happy to sit and soak up the sun. Something that we as humans also really love doing is just getting the vitamin D in for the morning. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like these impalas are up to anything too exciting. I think they're probably going to be sticking around here for probably the majority of the day. We'll keep on continuing driving along the Timbavati River, and whilst we drive, we'll send you across to Tswalu, who's got some mongoose. Sorry about that. As we are broadcasting live, they do sometimes little glitches, and we've lost Djuma temporarily, so we will stick with these impala for a little bit longer. But it's really cool. We get some really nice, beautiful shots of these impalas. You can see some of them are starting to chew. And so they would have spent the morning feeding, and now this is the time where they're relaxing and ruminating. So this one, you see that whole herd over there is really just spending some nice quality time in the sun, like we were saying. And this is when, impalas are one of those animals that we tend to drive past a lot. You don't get to see them like this very often. So to see, what I just love about impalas is the detail of the colors around the eyes. And that one with the small horns, you've got that white stripe, got the beautiful different tones of love me commenting on how social they are. Absolutely, yes. And for an antelope species, they are very, very social. And if we watch them long enough, we did see it very briefly with those young males. Now, they'll take some time and walk up to one another and they'll groom each other. And they tend to groom around the neck and the face into places that they can't really reach themselves. And that just helps get ticks and parasites off of them. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why sticking in a big group like this is beneficial for them. See that one just off to the left of the screen there? You can see it grooming itself. The very next breath, it could walk up to another individual and groom a different individual. But, with a big group like this comes lots of eyes and ears, lots of noses to pick up any sort of smells. And so for a predator to sneak up into a group like this is really, really hard. And if they happen to see a threat, they might start alarm calling, and they'll alarm call it at anything. And a big predator species that they alarm call at are things like lions. Mentioning lions, I think we might send you across to, I think it's Phinda who has lions with you at the moment.
So Rick was just speaking about impalas alarming at big predators like lions, and we did hear some alarm calls earlier on, and we're not sure what it was at. There was tracks of the male lion in this area, so maybe he was even here last night and fed on this carcass and moved off. And those alarms that we heard may have been them towards him. But we didn't want to go look because we didn't want to leave this fantastic sighting. The 5 youngsters, and actually we only thought there was 1 female left here, and there is in fact 2 females left here. One of the other adult females that was here earlier has been lying in the long grass the entire time. And so we thought that she was busy hunting, but we managed to just get a quick glimpse of her in the grass off in the distance. So I'm hoping she's going to get up and come and feed here as well. And then the 3rd female with the 2 cubs that you all saw earlier has moved off. There's a bit of a dry riverbed south of where we are here, and I suspect that she's taken the cubs into that direction. So Ben, I was just saying, I think the males were here last night when they fed on this carcass. There was tracks of a male in this area, and very close to where we are now. And the males, who have very good sense of hearing, smell, eyesight, would have definitely known that these lions were on this kill. So I think that he may have fed with them, got his fill, and then continued on to mark his territory. Now, normally what would happen is that if the females make a kill, and they're feeding on it, they won't necessarily call the males over, because if the males do come over, they will often bully the females and the cubs off of the carcass, and they will spend most of the time feeding on the majority of the carcass. So the females aren't always happy to have the males around. And for them to also know that let's say the male wasn't here last night. I'm just assuming he was, but let's say he wasn't here last night. For him to know that there is a carcass that this pride is feeding on, he would either have to smell it from a distance or happen to come across it, or the pride would have to call out to him. And I don't suspect that they would have done that. It's not very typical. The females prefer to feed on the carcass without the males. That being said, they do feed with the males, so if the males are around, they will feed with him, and they will hunt for him because they do recognize the importance. So the females do realize the importance of having the males feed, because those males will protect the pride and protect the cubs. And so they do hunt for the males, but they don't necessarily always call the males over. So those 2 males may not feed on this, and they might have to feed on something else while they walk around their territory, while they do their patrol. All right, so I believe Taylor has finally reached Leopard Dam. She doesn't have a leopard, unfortunately, at Leopard Dam, but she does have a herd of buffalo.
Yes, we do. And just as you were saying, the importance of male lions is to protect the cubs. Well, the importance of buffalo bulls is to also look after the herd. But they're not doing a good job at that today. They're very focused on drinking some water after that long staggering walk that they've done from their resting point this morning. But we are at Leopard Dam. It is a beautiful big watering hole, and it attracts many, many animals. Now, because we're going into winter here in South Africa, in this area, the winters are very dry, so we're not going to get any more rain. And if you look at that buffalo, you can see how thin he is. You can see his hips are sticking out. He doesn't look very well. He doesn't look as fat as the other buffalo. He's already lost condition. This is normal for this time of the year because all the grass and the other vegetation, although buffalo mainly eat grass, doesn't have as many nutrients in it. They start to wear a bit thin. But this is good for the predators. So this is just the way that nature works. If you're not fit and strong enough to survive through the tough months, then unfortunately you're going to fall as prey to the lions. Melinda, buffalo horns are incredibly heavy. When you're out walking in the bush every now and then, you might, well, actually not every now and then, quite often you'll come across a buffalo skeleton because they do fall victim to lions all the time, and it's normally a big buffalo bull like this. And if you were to pick up the skull, the head, oh my goodness, it must weigh more than 10 to 20 kilograms, somewhere around there. Those horns are difficult to say exactly how much one will weigh, is because every buffalo is different. So it depends on their genetics, and you can see the size difference in each buffalo. So not every buffalo will have the same weight of horns, but it's heavy. It's very, very heavy. As it obviously gets old, because that's all keratin that you can see. That's what the horns are made up with. So very similar stuff to what our nails and our hair are made of. That becomes quite light, once it's not alive anymore, and it's just a skull. But it is very heavy. Walk on the bridge. There's no water buffalo in this part of Africa. They just don't occur here. So we've got the Cape buffalo, the African buffalo. But these buffaloes spend so much time in the water. As you can see, one has got half its body in the water. It's quite common, and people often make the mistake and will call them a water buffalo. So here, the buffalo do spend a lot of time in the water to keep nice and cool under the hot African sun. And then, like I was saying to you earlier, they'll cake themselves in mud to try and keep all the biting insects away. And then also it will suffocate the ticks that are living on them and that are feeding on them. So the oxpeckers obviously can't groom them and remove all the parasites, so they've got to do other things to try and help protect themselves from sort of the smaller critters that might annoy them. You can see that buffalo at the back. He's at a good old wallow. But it is a nice day, and there's some great wallowing spots where they can lay just out of the wind and keep warm in the sun too. The wind is starting to pick up now, so perhaps the scent of the buffalo will waft on down to the south where those lionesses are hiding about. So this afternoon could be a great opportunity to come back around here. And that's what happens in dry season, is that predators will just tail these buffalo. Lee, yes, lions, if they can, will try and hunt every single day. So they are opportunistic feeders. And what that kind of means is that whenever there is an opportunity to catch something, they will try. Lions are not the most successful hunters. It takes them a couple of goes before they eventually bring their prey down. They've got so much against them. They'll often try and hunt with the favor of the wind blowing down in their direction to hide their scent. So on windy days, it also muffles the sound quite a bit. If you think about it, you can't hear very well on a windy day. And that's also why something like a buffalo might become a bit more nervous and on high alert during these conditions. So like those lionesses were marching through the grass desperately looking for something, they've probably been trying to hunt something all night long and haven't been successful. So they may lay down and rest and then try again a bit later. But if they are just resting and a warthog or an impala or something comes on past them, they'll definitely jump to their feet in a moment's notice and try and catch their prey. But the buffalo are not having a wallow just yet. They've had a quick drink and they're going to move out to the open plains to continue grazing. Off you go across to Ngala, where elephant is down in the riverbed.
We've just seen this big elephant bull, and you can see in the background, it's the dry riverbed of the Timbavati River. And this elephant is really putting on a show for us. Just look at the size of his tusks. Really, really nice and big, well-established tusks. Also very even. I don't know if you will be able to see, but if you can remember that elephant I showed you probably about almost an hour ago now, this one's tusks are quite a lot longer and a bit thicker. And another major difference with this elephant is if you look at his eye, just behind his eye, there's that wet patch that runs down the side of his face. And that's a secretion that's coming from a gland. And it's a very good indication that he is in musth. And that is a very heightened state of testosterone that elephants or males experience, which can sometimes change their behavior. It looks like this elephant bull's old enough to have experienced and be able to handle himself in musth, but their movements are sometimes a bit sporadic. And so if he does decide to walk towards us, I'm just going to back off and give him as much space as he needs. Him being a really nice big-sized animal, he gets the right of way. See, he's moving over the branch, and he's just trying to get to as much of the green leaves as possible. And so I'm not sure if he's feeding. See, he is walking towards us. So I'm going to just make the decision to move back a little bit. And he's probably very relaxed with us, but we just want to make sure that he's got enough space so we don't feel like we're cramping him in at all. Now he's turning and showing us the proper end of an elephant. Brian, absolutely yes. Each elephant track is different. And if you look underneath an elephant track, it's basically a very, very hard layer of skin that cracks. And each crack is unique to an individual elephant. And so if we were on foot tracking this elephant, what we'll try and do to ensure that we're following the same elephant is to look at the individual footprints, which I guess is you can compare to the uniqueness of human fingerprints. And you'll try and find specific markings within the track that will tell us that this is this elephant. And it will sometimes be a long straight crack along the track. Sometimes you'll look for different patterns. I remember once tracking an elephant who had, within his track, it almost looked like small little line tracks within his track. And so we'll look, and in nice clear patches of sand, you'd look at the track, you'd see that small little line looking pattern, and you'd know, cool, we're following the same elephant. Especially in this area where there's so much elephant activity, trying to track an individual becomes quite tricky and cross over one another, and you find different tracks of different elephants. So it is quite important for you to take note of the size of the track and also the patterns within the track. You might spend some time tracking. See, we were talking a little bit as to why the elephant's ears are so big. And this is quite a good example, especially if he opens up the ears. The Pooba, you asking if elephants have got big brains, and absolutely they do. If you look at the size of its head, I mean, the majority of that is its brain. And I can't remember how much in terms of percentage it is compared to the rest of the body, but it is very, very big. You know, with their big brains comes a really, really good memory. And I think that's probably one of the things that elephants are very well known for, is their ability to find water holes that they could have visited years later. And within this area, there's so many different unique game trails that lead from place to place. And these elephants have got this amazing mind map of where all of these game trails lead to. So in times of serious drought, they'll be able to find water relatively easy because of that good memory of theirs. Yeah, so I think we might end up moving on from this elephant. He seems to be facing away from us, and it does look like he could move into some denser bush, and we don't want to get too close to him because he is in musth. So whilst we carry on and look for something else, we'll send you across to Djuma, where Trishala's got some cute little mongoose waiting for you.
We are still sitting here with our dwarf mongoose. I think they're starting to get quite warm now, and a few of them have moved off to forage, but about 6 or 7 of them are still on this mound trying to get really nice and warm. Now, they're really, really interesting creatures, which is why I've sat with them for another little bit, so I can chat to you about them, and we're going to be seeing them quite a lot out on safari because they're all over the place. And their groups can get quite large, to about 30 individuals, sometimes a few more, sometimes a few less. So I thought it'd be a good idea to stick with them so you can have a look and know exactly what they are next time you join us. And sometimes it's difficult to kind of picture that they're not rodents. Remember, we had that question earlier. And if you do have any other questions, please do pop them into the question box. We would love to chat to you. But because of their shape and their size, they do look so much like rodents. But as we spoke about before, they are in the order Carnivora, not Rodentia, which are the rodents. Hi, Piggly. You'd like to know actually a bit about the topic we're just talking about. Are they carnivores? They are. They're the smallest carnivore that we get in Africa, as in the order Carnivora. But yes, in fact, they are carnivores in the sense that they eat meat. So they are after insects, small birds, small reptiles, and yes, they will take snakes. They love a few scorpions. Anything that is living that they can get their very long, very sharp claws into, as well as their teeth. Now they go about foraging on the ground, looking to flush out any insects, other creatures that may be in the grasses that they can eat. And they do this with the help of hornbills, red and yellow-billed hornbills that they sometimes even wait for. Now they have quite a good relationship. Hornbills will sometimes go onto a mound and almost try to wake mongoose up in order to say, hey, let's go out foraging, you're sleeping too late. And mongoose are known to only get moving once they're warm, regardless of the time. If it's freezing at 9 o'clock in the morning, they will not be out foraging. So the hornbills sometimes come over and say, hey, let's go. And as the hornbill kind of moves around with the mongoose, the hornbill can take advantage of what the mongoose are flushing out and can't actually get to. Maybe they flush out flying insects and then the hornbill goes for it. Those type of things can happen, and that's why they often forage together. And in exchange, these mongoose get an extra set of eyes for protection, because there are a lot of aerial predators that wouldn't mind a mongoose meal at all. In fact, even a leopard would take a mongoose, like our girl Tlalamba. She is a leopardess that I was hoping to find today. In fact, I will still go up towards another area and look for her before drive ends. But even she has gone for mongoose before. Now, not all animals like to eat mongoose because they do have an anal gland. So they may not be particularly sweet smelling to creatures. They have scent glands, so they have a very particular scent But still, food is food, and animals out here will go for them. So they need protection, and they have that in the form of a number of adaptations, like their long claws, their eyes that are specially adapted to looking on the ground for any type of meal, while also being able to keep tabs on what's going on above them, and in the form of those hornbills that are around as an extra set of senses. They're part of, so we said that they're in the order Carnivora, and we'll chat more about that when you come back. But I'm going to send you over to Steve, who has a nice bird for you.
Welcome back to us, everybody. We've got a beautiful little bird called a little bee eater. You can see the green on the head and the yellow on the throat, and that sort of curved beak. Now, these guys don't only eat bees, they eat flying insects. So they sit on a perch like this. See how he's looking around quite intently, and if it sees an insect, it will fly off in a process known as hawking, just like people who have hawks on their arm, and the hawks fly off and catch food. That's the type of strategy that this bird has. It'll fly off, catch the insect, and then normally land back on the same perch or one similar. It's quite funny to watch sometimes, and they do catch an insect, including bees. They'll bring it back and they'll smash it against the branch for quite a long time before swallowing it. Trying to tenderize the food. Always on the one at the back now, dog. Tammy, yes, a bit more right, Darby. There's one sitting just on the right there. There it is. Tammy, wonderful colours, aren't they? And the name, Little Bee Eater. That's the smallest bee eater we find around here, but quite easy to identify with that yellow throat and the green on the head. Look how busy he's looking around. And you quite often find these birds following large mammals, because the large mammals will displace the insects. Oh, he's got a friend landed next to him on the top. They'll displace the insects, and they'll catch them. Many of these insects that are around now are very, very camouflaged and hard to see. Okay, very good. Well, our bee eaters are going to try to catch themselves some food. Let's send you back over to andBeyond, Phinda, whose lions seem like they're settling down.
So it seems like the lions have had enough of feeding on that giraffe carcass, and they have moved off. We're probably now about 300-400 meters away from where they are. They've gone in an easterly direction away from the carcass, and I think if they carry on walking in this direction, maybe about half a kilometer away there is a pan, and maybe she is thinking of taking her and her 5 cubs towards the pan for something to drink. I'm not actually even sure if there is water in that pan. I haven't been there for a while. But I'm sure after feeding on the carcass all night and all morning, they are very, very thirsty. But she's a bit grumpy at the moment. Every time the cubs get a little bit too close to her, want to play with her or have her groom them, she gives off a deep growl. So I'm hoping she might do so for you now, so you can hear how deep the growl of a lion can be. Let's listen. And on cue, just like I thought. Cub gets up, rubs itself up against mom, and she's not interested in them at all. Not quite sure why she's so grumpy today. Normally, after feeding on a carcass, the cubs would go over to her and she would groom them and clean off any blood or bits and pieces from the carcass that they're unable to clean themselves, particularly around the cheek, the back of the head. But right now, she is not in the mood to be a good mother. Shame the one cub's busy flicking off flies and accidentally flicking her in her face with their tail. Butterfly, they are certainly growing mom very quickly. They are young males, so all 5 of them are young males. And probably when they're about 2.5 years old, they'll be maybe close to being about the same height as she is. And then from there onwards, it is just going to be a little bit difficult for her to actually even defend herself against them when they're on a carcass, because they're going to be stronger at that stage already. And then from about 2.5, 3 years old, they're probably going to weigh very similar weight to her. And from there on, it's just bigger and stronger for them. Here we go. Let's see if she's going to react again. Nope. This time she decides not to, maybe because the cub isn't going over to her. You can see how he's moving gingerly around her. He's been told off a few times earlier today for trying to be affectionate with mom. You can see how alert she is. It is quite a windy day today, and when it's windy like this, they are going to be getting the scent of all different animals in the area, potential prey, maybe even other predators in the area. And so on a windy day, you do find that the cats tend to be quite a bit more alert of what's around. But I do think as it starts to warm up, it is almost 9:30, so it is going to be a cold day today, but it should start to warm up shortly. And I'm sure as it gets warmer, she's going to become more and more lazy and just want to sleep. So walk on the bridge lions do most certainly hunt elephants. It's not very common, and it is more pride specific. So there are prides of lions, particularly in Botswana. It's a very large prides of lions of around 20 or so that have become specialists in hunting elephants. A pride of lions like this would probably never even dream of taking on an elephant. It's just too risky for them. That being said, if a calf, for whatever reason, does separate itself from its mother, the lions then would kill the elephant calf, but they're not going to try to take a calf that's got the adults around, because they're just far too big and strong, and an elephant could very easily injure and kill a lion. So this particular pride will rather keep to hunting things like baby giraffe, warthogs, impala, wildebeest, where that risk and reward factor is more in their favor. All right, well, talking about elephants and hunting elephants, although I'm sure the elephant at Ngala isn't being hunted by any lions, let's head over to Eric, who I think has an elephant bull for you.
These elephants are most certainly not getting hunted by lions. They are completely relaxed. We've got a really nice big herd of elephants basically on either side of the road of us. It seems like they might have gone down towards the river to dig for some sand, just like you might have seen with Nikki yesterday if you were watching in the afternoon. So we've got this big bull in front of us. There's a female that's just to the right of him there. And so we've got a beautiful variety of sizes and shapes and a whole bunch of different elephants. It's definitely, especially here in Ngala, it's been an elephant type of morning. We started off with that nice big bull, then an even bigger bull, and now we've got a really big herd. They're in a very dense area, and they're just enjoying the greenery around them. So they're feeding on the grass. There's a few feeding on the trees. And it's certainly been a wonderful morning, and especially to the 10 Cents video viewers, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, couldn't have started off with a better way with those lions and the leopard interaction, lions and giraffe, buffaloes, elephants. There's certainly been a huge variety on show. What a wonderful way to end off, especially with this nice big herd of elephants moving through this area here. So from all of us, from Tswalu Kalahari, from Djuma Private Game Reserve, from andBeyond Phinda and Ngala, thank you so much for joining us. Got a nice size up here. As we say goodbye, hope you have a wonderful day.